All right, let's get right into an explainer that is literally going to change the way we think about the people working inside our organizations. I mean, we spend so much time and energy obsessing over hiring the perfect candidate, right? But how often do we actually stop and ask if we're putting them in the right roles once they finally walk through the door?
We constantly hear about these massive talent shortages. It's basically in every single business headline today. But what if the real issue isn't a lack of people at all? What if it's actually a lack of allocation intelligence? Think about it. What if the exact brilliance you need is already on your payroll, just, well, assigned to the completely wrong project?
This whole idea comes from a genuinely fascinating premise, and it completely flips our old, outdated habits on their head. For decades, organizations have been making staffing decisions based on who has the most seniority, what their official job title says, or honestly, just whoever happens to have a gap in their calendar. It's like playing a terrible game of corporate schedule Tetris. But in today's dynamic work environments, yeah, those shortcuts are totally falling apart. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 1, the real talent problem, 2, introducing the HCAF model, 3, defining the match index, 4, the illustrative microcase, 5, governance and bias risks, and finally, 6, the future of deployment. Let's do this. Starting off with Section 1, the real talent problem. So here's the deal. When we just look at role labels or just whoever happens to have free time, we end up with totally misaligned talent. And as our work gets more complex and interdependent, the cost of a bad assignment just skyrockets. Traditional allocation is obsessed with the title, but the real problem demands that we look at the specific fit.
Moving right along to Section 2, introducing the HCAF model.
Now, it is absolutely essential to highlight that this game-changing Human Capital Allocation Framework was created by Willem Shapers. He brilliantly designed it to treat staffing not as some boring administrative chore, but as a strategic prediction problem under uncertainty. You're basically trying to predict which available person is going to generate the absolute strongest match before the project even kicks off. Think of this framework as a living, breathing, socio-technical system. On one side of the equation, you have your talent profile, and on the other, the actual assignment profile. And bridging the gap right in the middle, that's your allocation intelligence layer. Plus, the system has built-in feedback loops. That means it actually learns from observed outcomes and continuously updates itself to make better matches next time. It's this beautiful, interdependent mix of analytical matching and human judgment. Actually, what's really fascinating here is how we completely disaggregate both the worker and the task. You don't just lazily assign an engineer to a project. No way. You are matching a worker's highly specific hard skills, their soft skills, and, crucially, their motivation, right up against the complexity of the task, the time pressure, and the specific team context. It's basically a multidimensional puzzle. Which brings us to Section 3, defining the match index. So how do we actually measure this without just relying on a gut feeling? Well, the Human Capital Match Index calculates the fit across 4 very specific dimensions to predict success. First, skill match. Then context match, like has this person worked with this exact type of difficult stakeholder before? Then motivation match, do they even want this gig? And finally, team fit, how well are they going to vibe with the people already on the project? This index runs on a simple 0 to 1 scale. Basically, if an assignment scores a .70 or higher, boom, you've got a high probability match. You can feel really confident deploying that person. But if that score drops under a .40, that is a massive red flag for a severe mismatch, and managers need to hit the brakes immediately. All right, Section 4, the illustrative microcase. Let's make this super concrete. Imagine a consulting firm trying to staff a really sensitive, incredibly fast-paced project. Old school, traditional logic says, grab the senior analyst, even if they're completely swamped. But the HCAF model, it actually flags a slightly less senior person as a far superior match. Why? Because they have high availability, a proven track record with these exact stakeholders, and they actively want the assignment. And by making that smart, data-informed choice, the downstream results are just phenomenally better. We're talking way faster ramp-up times, significantly fewer headaches and escalations with the client, and a much, much lower risk of having to swap out team members halfway through. I mean, it's a total win for the client, the firm, and the employee. Let's pivot to Section 5, governance and bias risks. Look, no framework is some magical AI fix, right? This model naturally struggles in low-data environments where you aren't actually tracking skills. It's basically flying blind. It's also pretty unnecessary for highly standardized, repetitive work. And honestly, if you have a company culture where managers just aggressively override the system's recommendations anyway, well, the whole framework just becomes a useless theoretical exercise. To stop this system from just recycling old historical biases, like always handing the high visibility projects to the exact same demographic just because they did them in the past, you absolutely must have 3 rigorous governance conditions in place. Number 1, impeccable data quality. 2, real human oversight to make the contextual judgment calls. And 3, systematic aggressive monitoring for bias.
Finally, Section 6, the future of deployment. Over time, your true metric for success isn't just about project profits. It's about lowering your misallocation rate. That's really just a fancy way of saying the percentage of assignments that were obviously worse than other options you had sitting right there. Driving that number down proves your organization is actually learning how to deploy human potential efficiently over and over again. Ultimately, all of this leaves us with a really provocative thought. Stop stressing so much about finding new people and start intelligently allocating the brilliant talent you already have right in front of you. Because an organization that masters this framework doesn't just hire well, it ensures every single person is positioned to do their absolute best work.